not included is the petition as response, my response to the written submissions opposed to the petition, and it is dated the 7th of September 2023. My note, pursuant to Article 10, policy is Article 10, Article 165, 3D2, and Article 2. Policy decisions are subject to judicial review. We have a prescription of the Constitution that when it's a policy decision, it must be done according to the Constitution. I also submit that any bill touching on the Bill of Rights must be considered by both houses of Parliament, because even the county governments are subject to the Bill of Rights. Taxation affects property rights. It's also an administrative action under Article 47 and Article 40 respectively, and it must be subjected to consideration by both houses. In my submissions, I'll look at the other part of the petition. The petition was raised in two parts. And I will highlight my submissions concerning the procedure for making the budget before we go to the finance bill. And it's my submission that Article 220, Clause 1, Paragraph A, defines what a budget is as a document that contains both revenue and expenditure. Now, when you come to this particular process we have had, and Article 221 gives the procedure for how those estimates have been produced in the National Assembly, because it's a money bill, it has been produced in the National Assembly, pursuant to Article 109, Clause 5. And then, those estimates also contain the estimates of Chapter 15 entities, which under Article 249, Clause 3, the Constitution expressly requires that Parliament, and when the Constitution uses the word Parliament, it means both houses. If it means one of the houses, it uses the name of the particular chamber. Under Article 249, Clause 3, it states that Parliament shall allocate adequate funds to the Chapter 15 entities. So it's my submission that since the estimates submitted under Article 221 contain estimates of expenditure of the Chapter 15 entities, it naturally follows that the procedure under Article 221 must be read with Article 249, Clause 3, and that would ensure that as per constitutional edict, the budget must be considered by both houses. In my submissions, I've also shown that after there were no estimates of revenue that agreed with Article 221, Clause 2B, that was submitted to the National Assembly. The document that are referring to as the estimates, it was not in the prescribed form under Section 38 for the Public Finance Management Act. So, I've submitted that the failure to involve the Senate in the consideration of the budget estimates and the Appropriation Act violated Article 249, Clause 3, and that voided the entire budget making process, not just the finance bill. The estimates, the Appropriation Act, and anything that was done under the budget process in the 2023-2024 budget cycle in Parliament. It's also important to note that Article 96, 1 and 2 are very clear. And 91, the word is not promote. The Senate is there to protect. So the question should be, why protect? And the only time the word protect is used in the Constitution is in that particular clause. Even in clause 3, it's not as much. It's also used, but does not have the same connotation. To protect devolution. So we must look at the objects of devolution, including the equitable development of the country, and take into mind that the budget is executed in counties, and it falls upon the Senate under Article 201 and Article 174G to ensure that there's equitable development of this country, so that the national budget is not just done and then maybe all the resources are taken to one side of the country. That would defeat the objects of devolution. And that one requires the involvement of the Senate totally in the making of the budget. Because, my lords, as you know, that the government basically has one policy document. If it's not in the budget, it doesn't exist. So there's no way that the Senate can be a bystander in the budget making process if the objects of devolution are taken into account. Also, I've also submitted that the failure to include, to enact the estimates of revenue, I'm assuming that they were introduced in Parliament. Yes, they have argued that they introduced the estimates of revenue in Parliament, but then they disappear. Even the report, which is titled Report of the Committee on the Estimates of Revenue and whatever, do not have any word on the revenues. It only deals with expenditure. So, my lords, the question that comes to mind is, where did the revenues of estimates go? And under Article 1, Article 9, 109 plus 1, Parliament exercises its legislative authority through bills approved by Parliament and assented to by the President. We cannot introduce budget estimates through reports of Parliament. That's not how Parliament works. We do a lot of work in Parliament, reports, statements, motions, but Article 109 says the legislative authority of Parliament must start as a bill. And there is no bill that contains estimates of revenue that has been produced in this court. Further, my notes and my lady, I say that the failure then to enact those estimates of revenue into law means that this budget has got no revenue provision. And therefore, why do you need a finance bill? What will it be? A mechanism of raising which revenue? Raising revenue that has not been approved by Parliament? My lords, I also go, and under still under 121, clause 6. There's an interesting design in clause 6, whereby the trusters say that the estimates of expenditure of the national government, of the judiciary, and of Parliament shall be included in the Appropriations Act. It does not say they will form the Appropriations Act. What is to be included is to be added on to something else. And so the argument that the Appropriation Act only carries estimates of expenditure of the national government, of the judiciary, and of Parliament is not acceptable under Article 6. They are included in something else. But if you look at the Appropriation Act of 2023, it only has estimates of expenditure. There are no estimates of revenue. Then you go back and you are told under Article 220, clause 1, paragraph A, that the budget has two components. It has got revenue and it has expenditure. So if the Appropriations Act only has expenditure, where are the revenues in law? Why are there no revenues in law? And what happened to the revenue, the document titled Revenue Estimate of Revenues, although it was not in the format that the law prescribes, what happened to that document? Why was it hidden from the public? Why was it not subjected to public participation? And under Article 221, there's a clear requirement in clause 3 and clause 4 and 5 that the National Assembly will consider both of the estimates and both will be subjected to public participation. If you read the report of the committee the estimates of revenue disappeared. And I will explain why later that has been done.